My younger sister had an affair with someone and her handkerchief dropped at the scene. To cover up the truth, she falsely accused a poor scholar of taking liberties with her and had his legs broken. Feeling sympathetic, I secretly arranged for a doctor to treat the scholar and gave him 1,000 taels of silver. Later, the scholar topped the imperial exams and became a high-ranking official. Then came to propose marriage to me. I thought it was a match made in heaven. However, on the day my sister was beaten to death by her alcoholic husband, he sat motionless all night, then grabbed my throat and said, "If you hadn't meddled back then, Cece and I would have been together long ago. You're the one who killed her." He hated me to the bone and tormented me in every way possible. After having my fingernails pulled out and my legs broken, I froze to death on a snowy night. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day of my sister's affair. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. How did my lady's handkerchief end up in your possession? I know now. You scoundrel must have stolen the handkerchief, intending to sully my lady's reputation. At the banquet, voices clamored. Lu Cece's personal maid, Hong Yu, berated Gu Yuming, pointing at his nose. You're lower than a beast. How dare you call yourself a scholar? Bah! Lu Cece's beautiful eyes brimmed with tears as she sobbed. This man tried to take liberties with me earlier. When I refused, he resorted to such despicable means to tarnish my innocence. If we don't kill this scoundrel today, I won't be able to quell the hatred in my heart. Father, you must seek justice for me. As she spoke, Lu Cece's hair was slightly disheveled, her face flushed, and her clothes noticeably wrinkled. Anyone with a bit of worldly experience could easily guess what had transpired not long ago. However, Lu Cece was the legitimate second daughter of the prestigious minister's family. And Gu Yuming was merely a poor scholar who had come to the capital for the imperial exams. He was invited to the minister's banquet only because of his minor reputation for talent. Even if everyone guessed the truth, no one would be foolish enough to oppose the Lu family for the sake of a poor scholar. Gu Yuming was unable to defend himself. My father had already assumed a furious demeanor. With a wave of his hand, more than a dozen strong servants swarmed forward. Gu Yuming was dragged away. The sound of wooden planks striking flesh mingled with muffled cries of pain. In my previous life, as a pampered young lady, I found it unbearable to listen. But at this moment, I felt indescribably satisfied. Lan Mei. I curled my lips into a smile and whispered in my personal maid's ear. Tell the people carrying out the punishment in the courtyard. This man stole my younger sister's handkerchief, which is truly despicable. Ask him which hand he used to pick up the handkerchief, and make sure they break that hand thoroughly. More than half a shurchen later, Gu Yuming, now covered in blood, was carried out and thrown away. The guests also left, whispering among themselves. As they departed, their eyes carried a mocking smile. It was an open secret in the capital that the second young lady of the minister's house had an unclear relationship with Prince Jean before her marriage. Her father and mother didn't seem to mind. They eagerly crowded around her sister, asking, "Well, have you secured Prince Jean? If you could attach yourself to His Highness Prince Jean, even as just a concubine, what would our Lu family have to worry about in the future?" Lu Cece smiled somewhat smugly. "Father, mother, don't worry. His Highness Prince Jean has already promised me he'll soon go to the palace to request permission to make me the princess of him." Her parents were overjoyed upon hearing this. They praised her for being thoughtful and understanding, and ordered people to send various treasures to her chambers. The smug look on Lu Cece's face grew even more pronounced. When her gaze fell on me, it gained a touch of malice. "Sister, don't worry. After I marry into Prince Jin's household, I'll ask Prince Jean to see if there are any outstanding servants or attendants among his staff. I'll surely help you find a good match too." In my previous life, when I heard Lu Cece say this, I flew into a rage. For the eldest daughter of the minister's house to be matched with a servant or attendant, Lu Cece was clearly deliberately humiliating me. As a result, I was scolded by my parents for not being as kind and understanding as my sister. But hearing these words now, I just wanted to laugh. Those servants and attendants in Prince Jin's household were all tall, strong, and exceptionally handsome. Prince Jean treasured them dearly. How could he bear to give them away? Let Lu Cece continue to indulge in her beautiful dream of mutual love with Prince Jean. Once she marries over, she'll know what kind of hell it really is. I didn't want to waste time on them, so I casually responded a few times, then made an excuse to return to my own chambers. Lan Mei. I called my personal maid again. Help me leave the mansion for a while. See how that scholar called Gu Yuming is doing now? As I spoke, I took out a few banknotes from my jewelry box. Lan Mei took the banknotes and asked, "Miss, are you feeling sorry for him? Do you want to help that scholar a bit?" Even a small maid like Lan Mei could see that Lu Cece had clearly framed Gu Yuming, and he had suffered an undeserved calamity. Therefore, she naturally thought that I, the eldest young lady known for treating people kindly, probably couldn't bear to see this and wanted to lend a helping hand. However, I slowly shook my head, revealing a cruel smile. No. I want you to have someone keep a close watch on Gu Yuming. If he goes to find a doctor, get there first and have the doctor leave. Make sure his wounds can't be treated, let him suffer to the bone. In my previous life, I took pity on Gu Yuming's undeserved misfortune. Not only did I have Lan Mei send him 1,000 tael silver note, I also hired the best doctor to treat him. In just over half a month, the wounds on his body had healed completely. But this time, without my help, given Gu Yuming's family circumstances, he could only afford ordinary doctors. Even so, I was not satisfied. Among these doctors, I secretly had Lan Mei hire away those with better reputations in advance. In the end, what was left for Gu Yuming were all quacks with several deaths on their hands. Under their diligent treatment, the little wealth remaining in Gu Yuming's family was completely swept away. Not only did the wounds on his body not heal, but they began to fester and rot, even breeding maggots. When Lan Mei relayed this to me, she almost vomited. In her desperation, Gu Yuming's mother couldn't catch her breath and died on the spot. In my previous life, after I married into the Gu family, I suffered no small amount of torment from this old shrew. Knowing I came from a noble family, she feared she couldn't control me. As soon as I entered the household, she set countless rules for me. During morning greetings, I had to kneel respectfully outside her room for an hour. When she finally woke up leisurely, all matters such as changing clothes, using the toilet, washing up, and combing hair were not allowed to be handled by servants. I had to personally attend to everything. During meals, I was not allowed to eat at the same table as them, but had to stand aside and serve dishes. The old shrew deliberately tormented me, intentionally eating extremely slowly each time. I often had to stand for 1 or 2 hours. If there was anything about the food that displeased her, she would berate me harshly. The most nauseating thing was, when she ate something she didn't like, she would spit it out directly and force me to catch her vomit with my hands. Recalling all this, I gritted my teeth in hatred. Therefore, after Gu Yuming's incident, I immediately hired a group of people to mock and throw dung at the Gu family's door, pointing and gossiping about Gu Yuming's mother. She had been a widow for many years, raising Gu Yuming alone. She had always been proud of this talented son, believing that he would become a high official and earn a lot of money in the future. Thus, she often looked down on others, and the neighbors all despised her greatly. Now that this had happened, not only did the neighbors not speak up for her, but they all gloated. Gu Yuming's mother had been proud for most of her life. How could she endure such humiliation? That's why she couldn't swallow this anger and died on the spot. When I heard about this, I felt somewhat regretful. They say good people don't live long, while scourges last 1,000 years. In my imagination, Gu Yuming's mother, that old shrew, should have lived to 100, suffering all the world's miseries before dying miserably. To die so quickly was not satisfying enough. Well, never mind. Since the old hag is dead, my remaining target is just one person, Gu Yuming. I want to see if this filial son and great lover can still pursue his so-called true love without any misgivings after costing his mother's life. Miss, there's a beggar blocking the way ahead. I'll have someone drive him away immediately. Even through the sedan curtain, I could smell a piercing stench. Struck by inspiration, I lifted the curtain. Who else could be prostrate on the ground outside but Gu Yuming? At this moment, he was disheveled and filthy, dressed in tattered clothes, emanating a putrid odor mixed with the smell of excrement, making one nauseous. Due to his broken legs not receiving timely treatment, Gu Yuming had now become a cripple, unable to even stand. He could only crawl on the ground using his crippled hands. Everywhere he crawled, he left a wet trail mixed with blood, pus, and urine. Passers-by hurriedly avoided him. Some mischievous children even threw pebbles at him, laughing and cursing as they did so. "Stinking cripple, you reek. Get lost. Get out of here." An indescribable sense of satisfaction rose in my heart. Yes. This is the life that scum like Gu Yuming deserves. I want him to languish in hell for eternity, never to rise again. I suppressed the slight upturn of my lips. Just as I was about to lower the curtain and instruct the driver to run over him mercilessly, I saw Gu Yuming's lips move, his voice hoarse as he said, Man. Gu Yuming had actually called out my personal name. His bloodshot eyes were filled with confusion and resentment as he mumbled, Why didn't you save me this time? I was thunderstruck. Gu Yuming had also been reborn. If he hadn't been reborn, he couldn't possibly know my personal name, let alone ask such a question. Excessive shock left me momentarily stunned. My fingertips unconsciously dug into my palm, the sudden pain bringing me back to my senses. In that split second, only one thought remained in my mind. I can't let him know that I've been reborn too. I quickly composed myself, furrowed my brow as I looked at Gu Yuming, and said with anger, Who are you? How do you know my personal name? And why should I save you? Gu Yuming was taken aback, a flash of disappointment crossing his eyes. But he quickly pulled himself together, struggling to raise half his body as he said, I am Gu Yuming. That day, Before he could finish, I harshly rebuked him. So it's you scoundrel. Not only did you steal a handkerchief to frame my sister before, but now you dare come here spouting nonsense. Do you really think the Gu family is so easily bullied? Someone come, seize this scoundrel and take him to the authorities. Upon learning that Gu Yuming had also been reborn, I felt momentary panic. In my previous life, I was just an ordinary young lady from a noble family. From childhood, I had only learned about the 3 obediences and 4 virtues. How to be virtuous and manage a household. Spending my entire life confined to the inner courtyard. Gu Yuming, on the other hand, had achieved success at a young age. At just over 20, he had already topped the imperial examinations, becoming the top scholar. Later, his official career soared, eventually reaching the highest positions in the court. Compared to him, my little schemes and tactics seemed rather inadequate. For a moment, I considered simply hiring an assassin to kill Gu Yuming. But I quickly extinguished that thought. Let alone the fact that as a sheltered young lady, the only people I could contact were maids, servants, and household staff. Where would I get the extraordinary ability to hire an assassin without leaving any traces? Moreover, Gu Yuming had also been reborn, his cunning and caution were extraordinary. If I made one wrong move, it might alert him to my plans. That would truly be a case of losing on all fronts. After a brief moment of panic, I quickly regained my composure. Although my life experience didn't match up to Gu Yuming's in the previous life, I had my own advantages. Firstly, Gu Yuming was in the open while I was hidden, he didn't know about my rebirth. This gave me a lot of room to maneuver. Secondly, right now he was just a poor scholar, and a disgraced one with crippled legs at that. While I was at least the eldest daughter of the minister's family. Even if I wasn't as favored as my sister, the resources at my disposal were far beyond what Gu Yuming could match. The final outcome was still uncertain. A clear mind makes the world vast. Soon, I had a plan in mind. I called Lan Mei over and whispered a few words in her ear. Then I took out all the pocket money from my dowry. This matter must be handled discreetly, leaving no traces. If anything unexpected happens, inform me immediately. Soon, 2 rumors spread like wildfire throughout the capital. The first one claimed that the world-renowned talent Gu Yuming was actually a lecherous scoundrel and a shameless villain. It said that after just a glimpse at the minister's mansion, he stole the second young lady's handkerchief, intending to defame her and force her into marriage. When his scheme failed, he still persisted shamelessly, trying every trick in the book. He even went so far as to harass the eldest young lady of the mansion. Such a person with talent but no virtue, if he were to become an official, would only be a great calamity for the people of the world. The other rumor, however, was quite the opposite. It claimed that Gu Yuming and the minister's second young lady had actually been in love for some time. The handkerchief was a secret gift from the young lady. It was only accidentally revealed in public. To protect her reputation, the second young lady turned against her lover. Gu Yuming, proving to be a man of honor and loyalty, chose to take the blame alone to protect his beloved. He even endured having his legs broken for it. These two contradictory rumors were, of course, both spread by me. However, I deliberately chose different locations and targeted different people. The first rumor was most discussed among the various scholars participating in the imperial examinations. Gu Yuming was famous for his talent, and usually aloof and arrogant, looking down on others. Many of his fellow candidates were jealous of him. Among them, the youngest son of Assistant Minister Hu of the Ministry of Revenue was the most resentful. These two were both hot favorites to win the top spot in this year's examinations. Yet Gu Yuming outshone the young Hu in every aspect. If Gu Yuming couldn't participate in the examinations, the one who would benefit the most would undoubtedly be this young Hu. The other rumor spread most widely among the noble families in the capital. It was no secret in the entire circle of young ladies in the capital that Lu Cixi liked to socialize with famous talents, eager to make them jealous over her. These days, when Lu Cixi attended parties with other noble ladies, she was repeatedly mocked indirectly, which made her cry bitterly. After returning home, she complained to father, demanding that he must kill Gu Yuming to vent her anger. My father was most concerned about his reputation. He wouldn't secretly kill someone, but impeaching at court was his specialty. Soon, he wrote a memorial. It stated that someone like Gu Yuming, with no virtue despite his talent, was unfit to serve as an official at court. Coincidentally, Assistant Minister Hu also wrote a similar memorial. Several courtiers close to them chimed in as well. The emperor immediately flew into a rage. He issued an edict stripping Gu Yuming of his title as a successful candidate in the provincial examinations, and declared that he would never be allowed to serve as an official at court. In his previous life, he had risen to the position of prime minister, second only to one person and above 10,000 others. His talent was renowned throughout the world. But in this life, he would forever remain a commoner. Moreover, because of this romantic scandal, he would be forever nailed to the pillar of shame, scorned and cursed by people. Unable to enter officialdom and with his reputation ruined, Gu Yuming was like a tiger with its claws removed. I thought he would never be able to turn the tables. However, a few days later, Lan Mei told me some bad news with a worried face. Gu Yuming had disappeared. The people watching him dozed off for a moment, and he vanished without a trace. Perhaps he couldn't accept such a drastic change in fortune. He might have gone to some remote place to end his life. Lan Mei tried to comfort me. I hoped so too. But my intuition told me this wasn't the case. Someone who had once stood at the pinnacle would not allow himself to rot in the mud. I didn't believe Gu Yuming would just accept his fate like this. For several months, I have been in constant anxiety. Once I was in the dark, and Gu Yuming was in the light. Now the situation has reversed. I am in the light, and Gu Yuming is in the dark. He is like a lurking venomous snake. I don't know when he will suddenly extend his sharp fangs, bite me viciously, leaving deadly venom that will rot my entire body. Those painful memories appear again and again in my midnight dreams. In my previous life, after marrying Gu Yuming, he only treated me as a substitute for Lu Cixi, forcing me to dress up like her while also humiliating me, saying I wasn't worth a hair on Lu Cixi's head. Later, Lu Cixi discovered Prince Jin's homosexual affair. Enraged and humiliated, Prince Jin beat her day and night, torturing her beyond recognition. Lu Cixi wanted to escape from Prince Jin's mansion. But my father, who would sell his daughter for glory, only asked her to endure and not burden the family. So, she turned her gaze towards Gu Yuming. She deceived Gu Yuming, saying she had long harbored deep feelings for him. She claimed that dropping her handkerchief back then was intentional, hoping to make his acquaintance. However, being too young at the time, she chose to lie after I threatened and coerced her. Since then, she had always felt guilty. She even asked me to help her send for doctors and silver to him. My past kindness to Gu Yuming was claimed by her with just a few words. Learning the truth, Gu Yuming hated me to the bone. The day he returned home, he ordered someone to break my legs and pull out all my fingernails. Does it hurt? He gently caressed my face, his voice soft to the extreme. But in his pitch-black pupils, there wasn't a trace of warmth. When I was falsely accused back then, it hurt just like this. Lu Man, you deserve this. Later, Lu Cece was accidentally beaten to death by the drunken Prince Jean. After sitting motionless all night, Gu Yuming grabbed my neck and said, "If it weren't for your meddling back then, Cece and I would have been together long ago. You're the one who killed her." He stripped off my clothes and hung me upside down from the ceiling beam. Using a blade, he cut off pieces of my flesh one by one. Whenever I fainted from the pain, he would order someone to splash me with salt water to wake me up. Gu Yuming said he wouldn't easily take my life, wanting me to atone for my sins for the rest of my life. After enduring inhuman torture for a full 3 months, I finally found a chance to escape from the Gu mansion. However, fate played a cruel trick. Just a few steps away from that cage, I collapsed in the snow due to extreme weakness. After that, I never woke up again. The nightmares of my past life still cling to me like a bone-deep curse, leaving me sleepless night after night. I know that unless I truly see Gu Yuming's corpse with my own eyes, I will never be able to sleep peacefully in this life. However, the people I sent out to investigate have all vanished without a trace, like stone oxen sinking into the sea. It wasn't until nearly half a year later. At a family banquet, my father inadvertently complained a few words. He said that Prince Lin had been repeatedly achieving merits lately, rising like the sun at high noon. Even the usually favored Prince Jean had been overshadowed. Because of Lu Cece, our family had always been firmly in Prince Jin's faction. But judging from my father's tone, he seemed to intend to hedge his bets and please both sides. I've never had much interest in official matters, so I absent-mindedly replied. Prince Lin has always kept a low profile. Could it be that he's received guidance from some expert? As soon as the words left my mouth, I suddenly had a realization. Prince Lin? Prince Lin. That's right. In my previous life, Gu Yuming was part of Prince Lin's faction. With his assistance, Prince Lin went from being a frustrated prince to becoming the crown prince step by step. In this new life, it's only natural for Gu Yuming to seek out Prince Lin again. I was too presumptuous. I thought that by cutting off Gu Yuming's path to the imperial examinations, preventing him from becoming an official, he would no longer be able to connect with his previous life's path. But thinking carefully, he could completely join Prince Lin as an advisor in secret, using his memories from the previous life to rise to power once again. A few days later, my father sighed again during dinner. He said that Prince Lin had indeed gained an advisor recently. It was rumored that this person could predict events as if divinely inspired, foreseeing the future. Prince Lin's repeated achievements were all thanks to this advisor's strategies behind the scenes. Such a heaven-sent talent had only one flaw: he was born disabled and could only spend his days in a wheelchair. It was also said that this advisor was extremely mysterious in his ways. He never showed his face, only appearing to others wearing a mask. Initially, I only had some suspicions. After hearing my father's description, I could finally confirm it. The advisor by Prince Lin's side must definitely be Gu Yuming. I originally thought that a broken leg, the loss of a mother, a ruined career, and a tarnished reputation would be enough to break Gu Yuming. But I never imagined that even with all this, he would still follow the same path as in his previous life. A sense of indescribable frustration and pain welled up in my heart. Is it possible that even in this second life, I still can't make Gu Yuming pay for his actions? Did heaven give me this chance to start over just to make me realize how incompetent and useless I am? Am I doomed to repeat the same mistakes and suffer the same torturous death as in my previous life? At this moment, my self-loathing surpassed my hatred for Gu Yuming. For the first time, I deeply resented being born a woman. Why must I be confined to the inner chambers, resorting to petty schemes and underhanded tactics? If only I could be like a man, participating in the imperial examinations, serving as an official, achieving great deeds, and being granted noble titles. If I could rely on solid skills and abilities to reach high positions, possessing power, status, wealth, and fame, then I could crush Gu Yuming like an ant beneath my fingertip. That would truly be revenge. Instead of now, where I have to exhaust myself just to find someone's whereabouts. And even then, I can only obtain information through indirect means. In my extreme anxiety and distress, I began to bite my hand somewhat neurotically. Unconsciously, I kept muttering to myself, "There must be a way, there must be a way. There must be a way for me to turn the tables. If I calm down and think carefully, there must be something I can use to my advantage." I took a deep breath. The chaotic thoughts in my eyes gradually settled. If Gu Yuming could use his memories from his previous life to predict the future, there's no reason I can't do the same. Although I was confined to the inner chambers for most of my previous life and knew little of the outside world, thinking carefully, there are indeed a few things I could use to my advantage. At the Empress's birthday banquet, while outwardly engaging in pleasant conversation with others, I kept a close watch on the head table. In my previous life, assassins suddenly appeared at the banquet. Gu Yuming remained calm in the face of danger and took a sword for the emperor. With this meritorious act of saving the emperor's life, he became the emperor's confidant and his career soared from then on. In this life, Gu Yuming can no longer appear in public. But I guess he wouldn't let such a good opportunity slip by. Observing Prince Lin's restlessness and constant looking around, I suspected that Gu Yuming must have informed him about the impending assassination attempt. If Prince Lin could seize this opportunity, it's not entirely impossible for him to become the crown prince in one leap. Unfortunately, I won't give them this chance. Prince Lin only heard about it from Gu Yuming's account. But I actually experienced this assassination attempt in my previous life. When it comes to seizing the right moment, I have the advantage over him. Relying on my memories from the previous life, I estimated when the assassins would likely appear. Suddenly, I stood up, saying I wanted to perform a dance to celebrate the Empress's birthday. The Empress loved music and dance the most, so she immediately agreed. I moved with light steps, dancing gracefully. Using my dance steps, I gradually moved closer to the Emperor and Empress. And so, when the assassin revealed his sword with a flash of cold light, I became the person closest to the Emperor. Without any hesitation, I used my body to block the sword. Although the blade entering my body was painful, my heart was filled with indescribable satisfaction. Everything that belonged to Gu Yuming, whether it be opportunities or prospects, I will take them all away. When I finally regained consciousness, 5 days had already passed. The Emperor, upon hearing of my awakening, came to visit me personally. "You, a mere frail woman," he said. "Where did you find the courage to take that sword for me?" Faced with the Emperor's questioning, I responded humbly yet confidently, bowing my head respectfully. "Though your servant may be foolish, I understand that your Majesty is the father to all people under heaven. Is it not natural for a child to shield their parents from a sword?" The Emperor was indeed greatly pleased, and immediately wanted to bestow upon me the title of princess. But I gently shook my head, and after performing a few proper kowtows, I slowly spoke. "Your servant has only done what was right. I do not deserve such a generous reward from your Majesty. However, this humble servant has a small wish, if your Majesty would be so kind as to grant it." The Emperor immediately expressed that he would surely grant any wish I had. I bowed respectfully again. "Your servant has loved learning since childhood, admiring the words of the sages. I have often regretted being born a woman, unable to protect the country and bring honor to the family like men can. Today, I boldly ask your Majesty to issue an edict, allowing your servant, like a man, to participate in the imperial examinations and enter the court as an official, to serve your Majesty and the people with all my heart. Then, even if I die, I will have no regrets." My hands were clenched into fists, covered in fine sweat. I was willing to risk my life just to gain an opportunity for myself. An opportunity to no longer be confined within such narrow bounds. The title of princess may sound nice, but it's ultimately just a mascot showcasing royal favor. Rather than those empty titles and fame, I wanted real, tangible power that I could hold in my hands. The Emperor pondered for a moment. By convention, our dynasty has never had female officials since ancient times. But with your sincere heart, how could I bear to disappoint you? Today, I will make an exception and grant you the right to participate in the imperial examinations. Whether you can enter the court as an official will depend on your own fortune. When my father learned that I had given up the position of princess, in exchange for a chance at the imperial examinations, he was furious and berated me. He kept saying I was as stupid as a pig, a complete waste. But I had already prepared my explanation to deal with him. Father, your daughter has thought this through carefully. If I became a princess, that would settle the debt of gratitude with the royal family. Before long, His Majesty would forget about me. But if I can enter the court as an official, I will see His Majesty's face daily. Every time His Majesty sees me, he will remember my merit in saving his life. When that time comes, how could our Lu family not rise to prominence? Seeing my father's expression soften, I continued. Moreover, if I can enter the court as an official, I would be the first female official in our dynasty. Everyone in the world would know Lu Manman. They would also know that she has a great father. Wouldn't that greatly benefit your reputation? Hearing this, he finally beamed with joy. To ensure that I could achieve success in the examinations, he specially found the best tutors to teach me. When I told the emperor that I had loved learning since childhood, it was not an empty claim. I had read all the books in my father's study. Whether it was folk tales and strange stories from the streets, or the works of great scholars in classics, history, philosophy, and literature, I refused nothing. Additionally, in my previous life, I had been by Gu Yuming's side. Through osmosis, I had gained considerable insight into court politics, current affairs, and policy debates. When the tutor first began teaching me, he was greatly astonished. He said I was far superior to many students who had studied hard for over a decade. And later, he would discover I was more diligent and more devoted to my studies than anyone he had ever seen. Almost to the point of obsession. Because I understood more clearly than anyone. If I wanted to change my fate, this was the only way. While diligently focusing on my studies, I also kept a close eye on Gu Yuming's every move. The imperial examinations were held once every 3 years. If I waited until after I passed the exams to deal with Gu Yuming, it would be too late. Gu Yuming had Prince Lin's backing, making it difficult for me to contend with him alone. But who said only he could find a powerful patron? The current emperor had few children. There were 6 adult princes in total. Eliminating Prince Lin, Prince Jean with his poor character, and the sickly Prince Tan, I finally set my sights on Prince Zhou. Though his maternal family was of low status, he was fortunately a man of virtue. His abilities were also outstanding among the princes. He was a suitable choice, neither the best nor the worst option. I secretly offered my allegiance to Prince Zhou. At first, Prince Zhou was hesitant. But after seeing that I could truly predict certain events, he immediately treated me as an honored guest, seeking my opinion on everything. With my tireless help, Prince Zhou gradually began to stand out. For a time, Prince Jean, Prince Lin, and Prince Zhou formed a tripartite balance of power at court. None could overcome the others. Gu Yuming was not foolish either. After Prince Zhou snatched away one achievement after another that should have belonged to Prince Lin, he began to realize that he wasn't the only one who had been reborn. Lu Manman, I indeed underestimated you. Taking advantage of my outing, Gu Yuming arranged to dismiss my attendance and appeared before me alone. You indeed pretended not to know me back then. You deliberately withheld your help from me. Gu Yuming's face was filled with disgust. You poisonous woman. No matter how many times you're reborn, you're still so vicious. Do you really think aligning with Prince Zhou will allow you to bring me down? Looking at his nauseating face, I inwardly sneered. But my body involuntarily began to tremble. My speech also unconsciously became stuttering. I was just afraid you'd treat me like you did in the previous life. I spoke in a voice as thin as a mosquito's, timidly saying, aligning with Prince Zhou was just to find someone to protect me. As long as you promise not to target me anymore, I can immediately sever ties with Prince Zhou. My submissive demeanor clearly pleased Gu Yuming greatly. Seeing a satisfied smile appear on his face, I continued, don't worry, this time I won't interfere with you and my sister. You two will surely grow old together. I can help you bring Cici out, help you two be together. Gu Yuming didn't agree immediately. I laughed inwardly. So much for loving her to the bone. In reality, he still weighed the pros and cons of everything. If he truly loved her that much, in the previous life, he should have forcibly taken her from Prince Jin's manor, instead of waiting until she died to vent his anger on me. But I insist on fulfilling this hypocritical love. Seeing his hesitation, I added another strong dose. Prince Jean has already requested permission from His Majesty to marry Cece soon. You wouldn't want her to repeat the same tragedy in this life, would you? Since you two are in love, you might as well elope first. Prince Lin will surely help you. When you achieve great success in the future, you can hold a grand wedding for Cece then. I'm sure she'll understand. Under my instigation, Gu Yuming indeed became tempted. I arranged with him to bring Lu Cece to the Gilded Tavern 3 days later, so that the two of them could have a heart-to-heart talk. The Gilded Tavern was a renowned establishment in the capital. Not only was the food delicious, but the surrounding scenery was also remarkably serene. It was a favorite spot for both noble families and aristocratic young ladies. Therefore, when I invited Lu Cece here, she readily agreed. After a few glasses of wine, I casually brought up Gu Yuming. Speaking of that scholar who picked up your handkerchief that day. I had barely started when Lu Cece frowned. Why are you bringing up such an unlucky person for no reason? I took a small sip of wine and said calmly. I just felt that person was somewhat pitiful. That day, it was clearly you and Prince Jean having an affair in the backyard. Yet that scholar suffered unjust consequences. Lu Cece laughed disdainfully. Sister, rather than worrying about that scholar, you should be concerned about your own lifelong affairs. I, your younger sister, am about to become Prince Jin's wife. Yet you are still an old maid. If word gets out, our entire Lu family will be laughed at. As she spoke, Lu Cece touched her slightly protruding belly. Her expression grew even more arrogant. I know you looks down on me for getting involved with a man before marriage. But if it weren't for that encounter with Prince Jean in the backyard, I wouldn't have so conveniently become pregnant. And Prince Jean wouldn't be in such a rush to marry me. It seems you still need to learn more about how to serve a man. Otherwise, you'll be an old maid for life. My expression remained calm, but my eyes had already glanced towards the gauze screen behind. The shadowy figure there had unconsciously clenched his fists. I smiled slightly and continued unhurriedly. But I think that scholar seems to have some feelings for you. He was beaten so badly. Yet he never once defended himself. Lu Cece became even more smug, her smile full of contempt and mockery. He's nothing but a dog that comes when called. I only gave him a few taels of silver back then. And said some nice words about believing in his talent and that he would surely pass the exam. He was completely infatuated with me. Lu Cece fanned herself, saying smugly. Little did he know, among this year's exam candidates, I had given gifts to all the talented and young ones. I intended to cast a wide net and catch many fish. Unexpectedly, I encountered Prince Jean. How could such a poor scholar compare to His Highness? His only use was to take the blame for me that day. Seemingly feeling her tactics were brilliant, Lu Cece laughed almost maniacally. The person behind the gauze screen finally couldn't bear it anymore. You vixen! Harlot! I can't believe it's taken until today for me to see your true face. Gu Yuming emerged from behind the screen in his wheelchair. His eyes were bloodshot, exuding a murderous aura. You cost me my legs, caused my mother to die of anger, and ruined any chance of me entering officialdom. You wench! I must kill you today. The stark truth brought such an extreme shock that Gu Yuming momentarily lost his reason. At this moment, he was like a vengeful demon. He instinctively grabbed a decorative dagger from the room and was about to stab Lu Cece. Lu Cece screamed and hastily dodged. But the blade still left a long, bloody gash on her face. Having her prized beauty ruined, she too saw red. You low-born scum, how dare you hurt me? Don't you know I'm the future wife of Prince Jean? Her rage momentarily overcame her fear. She kicked the wheelchair, causing Gu Yuming to fall straight to the ground. Still not satisfied, she looked around. She actually picked up a potted plant and was about to smash it onto Gu Yuming. Gu Yuming didn't back down either. He raised the dagger and stabbed Lu Cece's leg fiercely. These two were fighting like dogs, biting each other with abandon. I found a corner where I wouldn't be affected and watched the show. My heart was beyond delighted. Just as the two were fighting obliviously, tearing at each other like street ruffians, an angry shout suddenly came from outside. What are you doing? The two who were locked in combat looked up and were stunned. Standing at the door were none other than Prince Jean, Prince Lin, and Prince Zhou. Behind them was a large group of officials. The two's unsightly state was instantly exposed for all to see. Needless to say, I had Prince Zhou invite these people. Although these three princes were at odds behind the scenes, they maintained a facade of brotherly affection in public. It was perfectly normal for the younger brother to invite his two elder brothers to a small gathering at a restaurant. Encountering a few officials and colleagues along the way and inviting them to join was equally unremarkable. But who could have imagined they would witness such a spectacle? The Prince Jin's bride-to-be, in a private meeting with a man. They were locked in a fierce struggle, appearing almost deranged. Within a day, this news would spread throughout every street and alley in the capital. Prince Lin and Prince Jean wore contrasting expressions, each telling its own story. Lu Cixi was the first to react. She threw herself at Prince Jean, sobbing, "Your Highness, you must seek justice for me. This man is that scoundrel, Gu Yuming. He has repeatedly tried to ruin my reputation. Seeing his plot fail, he even planned to kill me to silence me." She raised her head, revealing the wounds on her face, then pointed at the dagger in Gu Yuming's hand. "This dagger is the best evidence. And my sister. She can testify for me too." Lu Cixi's pleading gaze, Gu Yuming's trembling eyes. Prince Jin's furious expression, the anticipation hidden in the onlookers' faces. I became the focus of it all. Meeting their varied gazes, I slowly nodded. Indeed, that's correct. These few words were enough to plunge him into an inescapable abyss. Prince Lin closed his eyes with a sigh. Even if he wanted to protect Gu Yuming, the situation was beyond salvaging. Not only had he taken liberties with Prince Jin's fiancée, but he had also attempted to kill her with a knife. These two charges were enough to warrant 1,000 deaths. Gu Yuming never imagined that the person he had loved for 2 lifetimes would be the one to condemn him to hell. He collapsed to the ground like a puddle of mud. His face as pale as paper, he kept mumbling, "It shouldn't be like this." Despite her reputation being tarnished, Lu Cixi still successfully married Prince Jean. She thought Prince Jean was deeply in love with her and couldn't do without her. In reality, Prince Jean needed a foolish, easily manipulated wife from a decent family as his primary consort. This allowed him to continue his dalliances with the servants in his household. As for Gu Yuming's fate, it was even more interesting. I had thought that setup would be enough to cost him his life. But surprisingly, he encountered another benefactor who saved his life. And that benefactor was none other than Prince Jean. The reason was simple: Gu Yuming possessed exceptional beauty. And Prince Jean was most fond of such elegant and refined individuals. So he secretly arranged for another criminal to take Gu Yuming's place at the execution ground. Gu Yuming, with a new identity as Slave Ming, became Prince Jin's favored companion. When Prince Zhou informed me of this news, I was so shocked that I spat out the tea in my mouth. Then I couldn't help but clap my hands and laugh uproariously, laughing until tears streamed down my face. Former bitter enemies had suddenly become sisters sharing the same husband. I wonder how spectacular the expressions of Lu Cixi and Gu Yuming would be if they ever encountered each other in Prince Jin's residence. Given Gu Yuming's pride, this fate was probably more painful for him than death. I must thank Prince Jean for devising such a torturous method on my behalf. How delightful! How absolutely delightful! Without Gu Yuming's support, Prince Lin became like a bird with clipped wings, quickly losing his ability to soar. The court swiftly changed from a 3-way power struggle to a division between 2 factions. Not long after, the case of Prince Jean killing his wife while drunk shocked the entire court and country. Along with this revelation, Prince Jin's preference for male companions was also exposed to the public. The emperor was furious and immediately ordered Prince Jean to be stripped of his title and banished to the imperial mausoleum, forbidden to return to court without summons. As for the favored companions in Prince Jin's household, each was given 100 lashes and exiled to the border regions. Prince Zhou deliberately detained Gu Yuming and presented him to me as a favor. It had been a long time since I'd seen Gu Yuming, and he had transformed once again. He who once looked down on everyone with cold arrogance now knelt obediently at my feet. His submissive expression even held a hint of coquettishness. I shuddered at the word that popped into my mind. I had to admit, Prince Jean was truly skilled at training people. I couldn't help but curl my lips in a smirk. It seems you've adapted well to your new identity. In that case, I will send you to the Southwind Club in the capital, so you can make use of your last bit of value. To be safe, I first ordered someone to sever Gu Yuming's tendons, cut out his tongue, and gouge out his eyes. Only then did I have him sold to the Southwind Club to become the lowest of prostitutes. He would spend the rest of his life in inescapable despair, longing for death. After 3 years of hard study, I finally achieved success in the imperial examinations. Although I didn't rank in the top 3, I still became a second-class scholar. The emperor, remembering how I had saved him in the past, regarded me as a trusted minister and gave me much support. After Lu Cici's death, my father had placed all his hopes on me, his only eldest daughter. He spent a great deal of money to pave the way for my career. My path of promotion was extremely smooth. A few years later, the emperor passed away, and Prince Zhou ascended to the throne. Thanks to my loyalty during the succession, I remained a powerful figure in the court. At the age of 33, I became the prime minister. Second only to one person and above 10,000 others, I had truly reached the pinnacle of officialdom. In my previous life, Gu Yuming had stood in this position. And in this life, through my own efforts, I had finally reached the same status. But I was not content to stop here. There were still so many women in the world confined to narrow spaces. Their fates were still controlled by certain men. How could I be satisfied with my current achievements? Your Majesty, regarding the matter of women's imperial examinations we discussed earlier, I have some more ideas. The candlelight flickered. The long night had not yet reached its end.